Good morning. It is awesome to be here. Anybody feel good? Oh, wow. Anybody happy to be alive? Okay. And the rest of you who didn't say that? Come on, people. It is a joy to talk about life, and I know it's difficult because there's so many different facets to this fight. But how many of you are determined to never give up fighting for life? Come on. And hopefully today there are amazing speakers, friends of mine, hopefully we'll be able to inspire you and to equip you. Because a lot of times we just don't want to engage in some of the conversations. We don't even know necessarily what to say and what to do. And so hopefully today you'll leave here feeling equipped. And so part of that is me equipping you. So let me give you a little bit of background as to, I'm so used to having a handheld mic, I can't walk away from the mic. Oh my gosh. I'm stuck here. I'm a wanderer. My wife and I started the Radiance Foundation because we wanted to tackle the easy issues and be able to illuminate them in the context of God-given purpose. So we started the Radiance Foundation. Our slogan is illuminate, educate, motivate. And we illuminate the simple truth that every human life, regardless of circumstances of conception, regardless of whether they're planned, unplanned, able or disabled, red, yellow, black, brown, or white, every single human life has purpose. And we want to educate people about a myriad of social issues in that context. And then we want to motivate people, which we know is, see, the problem is, what good is the information? What good is the knowledge if people don't act on it? So trying to motivate people, trying to motivate yourself is not always the easy thing. Can I get an amen? But motivating others. So my official title is the Chief Creative Officer of the Radiance Foundation. Chief creative agitator, they're chief creative factivist, whatever. That's who I am. When I was a kid, my title, I think, was the Cartwheel King. I'm telling you, I could do the most ridiculous amount of cartwheels. Like, I would race everybody everywhere doing cartwheels. Anybody still do cartwheels now? As a kid, I felt like, I looked at the world a completely different way anyway. So doing cartwheels is just my way. I didn't want to run somewhere. I just wanted to do cartwheels there. I don't know why. Of course, now, the way that I would look at the world would be from the inside of an ER if I were to do cartwheels the same way. In fact, I had a friend who was filming a fatherhood spot at our house, and he said, why don't you guys go out and play in the backyard? And my kids were, hey, Dad, let's do a cartwheel race. Like, that's awesome, yes. Although, what is that law of thermodynamics? Is it the objects that are in motion stay in motion? Yeah, well, that was me. As my daughter, at that time, 5-year-old daughter, decided to cut right in front of me, there was no stopping me. I literally thought I crushed her, which was terrifying. She was screaming, crying. All this was captured on film. Someone who had gained a little weight over the years, and I think I just crushed my daughter. Thankfully, she was not hurt, but I realized I had to relinquish the title of Cartwheel King because it was no longer me. But moving on, there are some things that I'm somewhat good at, and I just thank God. God has given us all a skill set. Some of us, maybe even into our 40s and 50s, may even still be trying to figure out what that is. No, and it's okay. It wasn't until I got married. I got married at 35, got married a little late. But it really wasn't until my best friend in the world, Bethany, she's amazing. It wasn't until I got married to her that I started realizing some of the things that we had, and then God just kind of amplified it when he joined the two of us together because, and it's okay. Sometimes you think you know what you want to do the rest of your life at 12. Sometimes it might take till 45. Sometimes you might have that revelation at 60, and it's okay. Never stop dreaming. So some of the issues that we do tackle, you can see up here, social injustice of abortion, adopted and loved, Plan A, use this before Plan B, men by design, stop killing the dream, self-control versus remote control, because we have to be crazy and think that character still matters. Does anybody in this room think character matters? Yes. Okay. Some of you said yes. I'm taking note, people. I'm taking note. But everything that you see designed here is designed by me. And the table out there are a lot of free stickers and postcards and fact sheets. And I only say that not to elevate myself, but to highlight a God who can take something so tragic, to take something that the world said, someone that the world said should have been aborted, and enable me with these skills and talents to be able to shatter the myths of the abortion industry. That's God right there. And so everything that we create is predicated on this radical belief. We all believe in this room that every human life has purpose. Oh, I'm free. Freedom! Thank you. Oh my word. Yeah, no, I'm not having that show up on social media. Nope. I'm not doing any cartwheels, sorry. It's not happening. Yeah, I'm just trying to make, my wife would be like, what were you thinking? I wasn't. So sometimes you just act out of whatever. I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to be hospitalized because I have another workshop after this. But I love the fact that God, when he calls you to do something, will enable and equip you to do it. And I love that Bethany and I, through the Radiance Foundation, get to illuminate that every human life has purpose. And so I just want to give you a little background then in my family so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from, because it was mentioned that I have 12 siblings, 13 kids, small little American family. But here's a little bit of background to kind of understand who my family is.
Life is never picture perfect. Human beings come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and abilities. No matter how much we plan, no matter how much we think we're prepared, the unplanned happens all the time. It's how we respond to the unexpected that shows our true humanity. But many do not see the value of every human life. Too many are willing to discard those who don't fit the picture of perfection. Abortion destroys the chance to love and to be loved. We never know what will fill the frames of our lives or how empty those frames can be when we allow exceptions.
Every life is a gift.
I believe this. I grew up in this. My family is full of exceptions, say. This is going back a few years when my parents only had a small family of 6 children. My mom, who is so humble, and she is not a public speaker, she didn't like doing interviews very often because she always felt like journalists didn't understand what adoption was. Because they would say things like, what you're doing for that child is so great. And she would try to convey to them that adoption isn't just transformative of the child, it's transformative of the family, of the community, and sometimes even, the world. So she granted this one interview, and I love it. And I love that I was able to find the newspaper clipping with the title. It says so much, quote, unwanted children, unquote, find their wanted. That's me down at the bottom there, and my brother Todd, and Dory, and my sister Corinne, Derek, and Richard, my parents right there. Loved us all, planned, unplanned. And it's amazing because this is a broken world, and adoption happens out of brokenness. It happens out of the broken natural order of things. But the beauty of adoption is that it is able to restore what was broken. Adoption is the essence of salvation, by the way, people. As Christians, we should understand, actually, adoption it shouldn't be second nature, it should be first nature. There's no salvation without adoption. And so I just want to encourage people to do more to foster an environment that embraces adoption as an option. That doesn't mean everyone has to be an adoptive parent, but there are a lot of things that you can do. Supporting the birth moms who are often always forgotten. I mean, it's tragic how often they're not in the equation. Even sometimes with some of the rhetoric from pro-life individuals, they kind of tend to forget the birth mom. And so there are things that we can do to encourage that. I mean, if you know of an adoptive family, volunteer to babysit for their kids for a night or for a weekend. I mean, there are so many things that you can do to encourage adoption and encourage adoptive families. So this is my family, and it grew, 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 and yes, this is all 13 kids. Half with afros, some with the feathered action, Farrah Fawcett thing going on before, whatever. And you can see we all have a slight different look. Some of us are white, some of us are black, some of us are white and black. Some are Native American, Vietnamese, Black albino. Some of us were adopted as newborns. I was adopted at 6 weeks of age. Some of us were adopted as teens out of foster care. My sister Kendra, who's in the top row, second from the left, she was adopted, one of the last airlifts from Saigon out of Vietnam. And this is the Bomberger crew. Some of us have disabilities or differing abilities. All of us have special needs. All of you have special needs. Probably didn't know that, did you? All of us have special needs, and that is to love and to be loved. Simple as that. And all of us have the same value. And growing up in this transracial adoptive situation, and when I say race, just keep in mind, I'm always putting that in quotes, by the way. Because when you grow up in a situation like this, which is obviously diverse, and we hear diverse, anybody ever hear the word diversity at all in the last... Yes, diversity is beautiful, but commonality is powerful. Because it wasn't culture that bound us together, it wasn't, the hue of our skin that bound us together, it was love that bound us together. There are so many more things that we share in common. Now, I'm not, dismissing diversity, but there's always so much emphasis on it that it puts us immediately in different categories all the time. For instance, I'm not a hyphenated American. I'm just American. There you have it. And this, although the screen's a little bright over there, but this is the whole ideology when it comes to race with the Radiance Foundation. We are one human race. Can I get an amen? There we go. Now, for those who say that, those who are unplanned are going to be unwanted, they're going to be unloved, let me show you a picture of what unwanted looks like. This is my entire family, all Bombergers. My brothers, sisters, their spouses, their children, no aunts and uncles in the picture, just my mom and my dad, and all 65 of us. So, this is what love does. This is what happens when two parents defy the world's low expectations and say, you know what, I'm going to love. And it's amazing because people ask, well, what motivated your parents to adopt? I know they really mean what possessed your parents to adopt 10 children, have 30 kids, whatever. But it actually started with my mom's own brokenness. My mom had an alcoholic father, and her parents were separating when she was 5, and she herself was placed in a children's home for a year. And it's amazing because we are always underestimating what a child receives, what a child perceives. At the age of 5, she was so moved in that home, even though she was visited separately by her parents. She was so moved by another little girl who had physical disabilities who never, ever had anybody visit her. And that broke her heart. And see, my mom is just, she epitomizes empathy and compassion. That's who she is. And here she just remembers, as she tells a story, she remembers getting on her knees at the age of 5 to saying, God, help me to give homage to those who don't have one. And obviously, she followed through. So, thankfully, my dad was on the same page because you kind of have to be on the same page if you're going to have a family of 15, I'm just saying. Husbands and wives should always be on the same page. But my parents loved us, shattered the myth of the unwanted child, shattered the myth, which is the DNA of the abortion industry, that unintended equals unwanted equals unloved, which is a lie. And it's amazing, the picture that I just showed you was made possible not only by my parents who loved us all and helped, adoption unleashed purpose in our lives, but it was 10 courageous birth moms who made very, very difficult decisions. My birth mom, who I've never met, I hope one day I do, and maybe at one of these events I speak across the country and overseas, maybe she'll show up so that I can be just a hot mess of tears on the floor, because I will do cartwheels just for that, yes. And she will think I'm strange, but it's okay, because I am. I don't know. What words do you say to someone who showed so much courage and went through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy? See, the thing is, this is the beautiful thing about life. We often don't understand the impact of our singular decision. We always blame teens for, they always live in the here and now. We all live in the here and now. We so rarely think of the implications of our actions. And yet, a singular decision, the one by my birth mom, will literally have reverberations for generations. So if I were to, what would I even say to her? I don't even know. I might sing that song. I mean, that, honestly, I wrote this song called Meant to Be. That would be the conversation that I would have. But if my birth mom could ever understand what she enabled, she gave me the gift of life, gave me the gift of adoption. My parents love me, my siblings love me, at least some of the time. And God gave me purpose. But she never could have known what God had in store and all the things that I would become.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance, you gave my life a chance, touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
Never gets old. Truth never gets old. God's goodness never gets old. So I'm going to talk to you today about the heart cases, rape and abortion, because inevitably the conversation, especially when the other side realizes they have no foothold, they will just throw it out there. What about rape? It's inevitable. And we have to be prepared with an answer. See, I'm glad that God has given me the ability to tell the other side of the story, to say that there is something beyond the horror and the pain of abortion. And so first we have to, of course, think about cases of rape. What about the woman? And what I found was amazing, because when I travel, I meet a lot of rape survivors. And there is one common thread to what a lot of them tell me. And that is, the child is the only thing that is redemptive in this horrific act. Even those who are post-abortive admit that as well. It's amazing because we all know that abortion solves nothing. Abortion only compounds the violence. And abortion is like a second rape. Because here you have something being done to a woman, horrifically violating a woman, and a part of her dies. And just like the rapist, the abortionist abandons her. Because contrary to all the rhetoric we hear, the abortionist is not her personal physician who's there for the long haul. He's like the Dr. Willie Parker, former Planned Parenthood abortionist who now travels state to state to state as a multi-state abortionist. And he flies in for the weekend and then he's gone. Second rape. And it's amazing because we so rarely talk about the rapist. And here's the crazy thing. Of course, the American public thinks the natural follow-up to rape, the natural solution is abortion. But yet, even the rapist deserves redemption. All of us deserve redemption. Yes, he deserves punishment. And that's so rarely talked about because it immediately goes to the punishment of the unborn child. And it's also a punishment of the woman because it's not going to undo the harm. She needs the counseling that she needs. She needs the care and concern. But she also needs to be told that abortion isn't going to erase that horrific act and that there is another side of the story. There are the Rebecca Bergs of the world she was raped and she said, my son never reminds me of his rapist. That's a lot of what people think. Well, it's always going to be a constant reminder. You know, it's a reminder of God's grace. And so we have to think about the woman. We also have to think about this. We are stronger than our perceived or actual circumstances. I mean, there are probably a few people in here who have overcome something incredibly difficult in their life. Anybody? By a show of hands, anybody have faced anything difficult? I mean, initially it may seem insurmountable. We face these things all the time. My mother-in-law just beat cancer. I mean, that's how we're wired. It's how we're created. We're created to overcome. Of course, not on our own strength. We are stronger than our perceived or actual circumstances. And then, what about the child? Does that child's DNA somehow change because he or she was unplanned or because he or she was conceived in violence? You often hear, well, that child is going to take on the anger of the rapist. It's going to be just like him. Well, last time I checked, I'm not an angry person. I've not committed a crime, except in college, but that won't count. And that only had to do with a little bit of vandalism, but that's something else. Anyway, but what about the child? That child's value is not diminished. And I know it's hard to, a lot of times, for us to wrap our minds around, which is why it's a beautiful thing when you actually see a tangible example. Because it's much easier to reject something when it's in the abstract. But then when it's like, oh, flesh and blood right here. And then you can see how, and I can't take credit for any of it, but how God orchestrated all of these things. Here's some of the terminologies, some of the terms that people use that are interesting. Because one of the ways that we try to diminish the value of a human being is with our language. And so when we use terms like this to describe someone conceived in rape, the rapist baby, the rape baby, rapist child, or even product of rape. And I know actually some pro-life organizations and individuals, and I know they don't mean any harm by it, but see, I'm not a product. I'm a human being. And so little things like that diminish humanity. I wrote an article about this, and you can see this on our website, radiance.life. But it's called The Heart Cases, I Am Not the Rapist Child. And so I go into some of these numbers because we hear this and we hear the 1%, but that rape cases constitute about 1% of all abortions. So if we're talking about nearly 1 million abortions a year, about 1% of those, according to this study, are from rape-related pregnancies. But here's the thing. Does anybody know the actual numbers of rape-related pregnancies that happen in a year? Just throw out a number. See? Oh, I mean the total number. Oh, I'm sorry. In the U.S., how many rape-related pregnancies happen in a year in the United States? See that? Right. See, here's the interesting thing, because the numbers are so interesting. Because you can say 1%, it's not even 1%. The interesting thing, there's only one study by the American College of OBGYNs, basically, and in the Journal of American Obstetrics and Gynecology, they have this one rape-related pregnancy study, and it's the one that's constantly cited all the time. In fact, it's linked in this article. You can look at it. And they say that about 5% of pregnancies, 5% of those of women who are raped end up conceiving, 5%. So it's interesting because they come up with a number 32,101 rape-related pregnancies. But if that were 5%, that would mean that there would actually have to be well over 600,000 rapes a year in the United States. So this is just going to say that the peer-reviewed journals are often full of BS sometimes, and BS means bogus stuff, by the way, people. Come on. So even in peer-reviewed journals, and what they say in this, and they say that rape-related pregnancies constitute a significant number of unwanted pregnancies. But yet they're less than 1% of all pregnancies, which are, at that time in '96, there were about 5.4 million pregnancies. How is that a significant number? And out of those pregnancies, they say that, at that time, 49% of them were unintended. So you're looking at 2.5 million pregnancies, 32,101, and after those that are actually viable, because 11% are miscarried. So you're talking about 28,000 viable pregnancies from rape. And yet they say that this constitutes a significant number of unwanted pregnancies. So yeah, peer-reviewed journals are often, and articles are often very subjective. But what I found interesting is that 42% of these women, according to the study, chose life. And you would think it would actually be even lower. And it's amazing because some of that percentage is simply because people have stepped in. Pregnancy centers who I love. I love the people who work for these pregnancy centers, and they are counseling and equipping and loving people through horrific circumstances. 42%. 42%. And so it's also, just so you know too, this article, Not the Rapist Child, is in my book, Not Equal. I deal with this, and all the links are there. For those of you, anybody here, a fellow factivist, you're all about, where do I find these numbers? I'm all about that. I'm the creative, and I'm the very analytical too. So I love having the data there. So in this book, all those resources, all those citations are there. And as I mentioned, it's also online. But this is so interesting. This is the only study of its kind. And you would think that something that is always used, people, I am the 1% that is used 100% of the time to justify abortion. 100% of the time. You would think there would actually be more peer-reviewed studies on this. And ACOG, which is supposed to be a group that should see the value of human life, a group of OBGYNs, you would think that they would actually value human life, since they understand scientifically, one, that it is human, contrary to my debate 2 weeks ago on NPR, where the host said, it's not human. An unborn child's not human. Now, I'm used to the arguments that the unborn child is not a person, which is ridiculous, because we've already been there before. Hello, people with my complexion weren't considered persons either. That vernacular is ridiculous. But he was actually arguing that they're not human. What? A desk? A frog? That's what I asked him. What is it? A desk? Is it a frog? What is it? Well, it's not scientifically conclusive. Yes, actually it is. So ridiculous. There's a tweet here that I found so powerful from someone who was a victim of rape. And she says, I didn't just abort a rapist baby, I killed my baby. Women deserve better than abortion. She goes on to say, I conceived in rape and believe the lie that abortion is the only answer. I miss my child. There are people who are post-abortive, and thank God for wholeness and healing and restoration. Many of us make mistakes, and all our mistakes have different consequences. But I believe in a God who can restore. But it's amazing the world's take on rape. It is so crazy. Is it a horrific act or isn't it? And so here's an example. Former Vice President Biden was talking about how they had to pass a jobs bill and was saying that rape would triple if they didn't pass the jobs bill. You're going to exploit rape, which is already a violent act of exploitation, and to use it to encourage people to vote for, or encourage their elected leaders to vote for a jobs bill? Then you got Daniel Tosh and his rape jokes, talking about how he wished that someone in his audience was gang raped, and pro-abortion lawmakers perform pornographic play at the state capitol. I can't even say the title of the play, but it's certain monologues. And the whole premise of this very famous play is about statutory rape. Originally, it was about a 14-year-old who was raped by a woman. They raised her age a little bit to 16 because that makes it so much better. But are they serious about rape or not? Planned Parenthood uses rape all the time. Planned propaganda, whatever you're going to call them. They exploit it all the time. Let me give you an example. They have spokespeople, celebrities who love speaking for Planned Parenthood. Of course, they don't know anything about Planned Parenthood, but they're always speaking for Planned Parenthood. But let me give an example. Sarah Silverman, you've heard of the comedian Sarah Silverman, and she was the one who said she joked online on Twitter that she had to have a quickie abortion. Yes, because abortion is such a funny tagline, punchline. Here's an example of their take on rape.
I need more rape jokes. I really do. Rape is, I love that some people apply to that. Needless to say, rape, the most heinous crime imaginable.
Yes.
Seems it's a comic's dream, though. Because it seems when you do rape jokes that like the material is so dangerous and edgy. And the truth is, it's like the safest area to talk about in comedy. That's the trick. Because who's going to complain about a rape joke? Rape victims? They don't even report rape. I mean, they're traditionally not complainers.
Spokesperson for Planned Parenthood. Another one, Leah Dunham of HBO's now removed Girls show. I mean, how much, oh, I'm not going to go in there. Yeah, well, entertainment. We have more channels than ever before and more garbage than ever before. Girls is one of those shows on HBO. But she wrote this book, Not That Kind of Girl, and she is a Planned Parenthood spokesperson. They promoted her book. And in her book, she is literally boasting about molesting her younger sister. I mean, but then you got, the famous quote from Whoopi Goldberg. It's not rape. Because rape needs a qualifier. She was talking about Roman Polanski, famous, director who had drugged a young girl, 13-year-old girl, and raped her. And he's still this is still ongoing, by the way. This was years and years ago. U.S. has been trying to have him tried, and the country there he escaped to wouldn't extradite him. It's not rape. I mean, how do we... This happens because, and of course, Whoopi Goldberg is also another spokesperson for Planned Parenthood. This is a quote from Cecile Richards. Quote, "We aim to be the largest kick-butt political organization. That's why you can have spokespeople make jokes about rape, and spokespeople write books boasting about molesting their sisters. It's because that's who and what they are. They're political, not a spiritual organization, certainly not an ethical organization. That's who and what they are." And even with that, I will say that I'm a firm believer, as I mentioned, the rapist deserves redemption, so does the abortionist, so does the nation's leading abortion mogul. Cecile Richards, I'm praying that she will have a 180-degree conversion to where she'll be speaking at the March for Life in 2 years. And just pray for that, okay? So her heart can't remain cold forever. And just to touch on just a little, this is one of the fact sheets we have out there. In case you need to educate some of your friends or family or coworkers about Planned Parenthood every time they talk about, look at all these services they provide. Yes, let's look at all the services they provide. Every one of them, every major medical service to women are plummeting at Planned Parenthood. Mainstream media won't tell you this. Breast cancer screening is down 51.3%. In fact, since Cecile Richards took over in 2006 as the president of Planned Parenthood, they now do 519,581 less breast cancer screenings per year. That's why I say it's less care, no matter what. And here's the reality. Planned Parenthood aims to be the largest kick-butt political organization, so I just want to define, that truly does define the crucial difference between Planned Parenthood and I just came back from the Heartbeat International Conference in Chicago, pregnancy care centers. Here's the huge difference between Planned Parenthood and pregnancy help centers. Planned Parenthood lures women in with their lies. Pregnancy help centers love women with their lives. That is the huge difference. It's interesting. The nation's leading abortion chain, we've seen through live action how they will enable sex traffickers. What exactly do you get from Planned Parenthood as far as information or help when it comes to rape? They're always invoking it. Up until the Center for Medical Progress exposed Planned Parenthood with the excellent videos. Anybody see the undercover videos? There was nothing on Planned Parenthood's national site that was actually a resource for those who experienced that kind of assault. None. Only one of their affiliates had a link to RAIN, which is, it's the Rape and Abuse and Incest National Network. Only one of their affiliates had it, but Planned Parenthood didn't. Let me just give you an example of how Planned Parenthood exploits rape. Just watch this video. Now, this is just a few years ago. It was in an election campaign in Virginia. Just listen to her numbers. Interesting.
Planned Parenthood Votes is responsible for the content of this advertising, and Planned Parenthood Votes paid for this ad.
300,000 women report being raped in America every year. But Ken Cuccinelli would put his extreme policies ahead of their needs. He'd force a survivor of rape or incest in Virginia to carry a pregnancy caused by her attacker. He even opposes the emergency contraception they need to prevent pregnancy. Ken Cuccinelli. Wrong for women. Wrong for Virginia.
So the exploitation never ends. Did you notice the number she gave? 300,000. Do you know what source reports rape? What governmental source reports those numbers? Everyone's going like, shush. Say it loud! CDC, no, the FBI. The FBI actually has the official statistics of reported rape. And now this was done in 2013, so they only would have had access to 2012 stats, but they said every year 300,000 women report rape, right? The FBI in 2012, there were 84,376 reported rapes. 84,376. The year before that, 83,425. Of course, that's 83,425 too many. But I'm just saying that they will exploit an already exploited situation. Now, the organization that I talked to you about, RAIN, this is interesting because it's the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, okay? And when you go onto their website, you don't see them actively promoting abortion, but every spokesperson that they have promoting them is a pro-abortion activist. But the interesting thing is, they too exploit these numbers and they mislead on these numbers. That number actually kind of comes from them, the 300,000. Now this particular screenshot shows 237,868. There is one other source of information that has rape, and it's called the Department of Justice National Crime Victimization Survey. It is a survey, and those numbers are actually more. Now these are not reported rapes, but these are from a survey. And the interesting thing is, from 2012, I don't know if you can see it from where you are because the screen's kind of small, but I believe it's about 170. I need to move over here. You see it? Under 2012, 170,400, is that the right number? Now this is the number of victims. Now out of that number, 38% of them are male. So out of that means there are 64,752 males who are victims. How do you get to that 300,000? You don't. Here's the other part of the survey, and this is number of victimization. So it can be one person who's been raped. I can't. One time is horrific enough, but over and over and over again. And so you see these numbers are higher. I believe in 2012 it says 346,630 or 830. Okay, I need better glasses. But those are number of victimizations, not the number of victims. And there again, 38% of these victims are male. But this is what Planned Parenthood does. This is what the world does. They take something so horrific and they continue to exploit it. And what they say is, they come to us, we'll take care of it, we'll take care of it. You know what they take care of? This meme kind of says it all. We'll end your pregnancy, not your sexual abuse. This is what they do. Especially when you have an organization that's willing to aid and abet sex traffickers. Not only that, Planned Parenthood actually fights against legislation requiring their staff to report rape. In several states, Planned Parenthood has lobbied against bills that require their staff, which could be a receptionist, it could be whoever is on their staff, to report rape. They fight against it. And they have failed to report rape in state after state. They've been sued in multiple states for failing to report rape. And what do? They put that victim right back into the hell that she came from. Sexploited. That's what it is. All of this because for them, sex means nothing. It's weird. It's both everything and it's nothing. Because they're so wrapped up in it, and that's why they'll walk around in anatomical parts, because it just means nothing to them. But yet rape is a whole lot of something. It's interesting, probably a hero to some in here, I would suspect. There is a hero, an obscure president you probably never heard of. Ronald Reagan? Anybody? And it's amazing because Ronald Reagan actually was the person who signed one of the most catastrophic bills in America, and he regretted it. It was the 1967 Therapeutic Abortion Act. Therapeutic abortion. I mean, you talk about an oxymoron right there. Of course, these were situations, this was in case of rape and incest and life of the mother. That's all they were going to do. They're therapeutic. These are the extreme cases. Of course, now California is the nation's abortion capital. We don't even know actually how many abortions happen because even their own State Department of Health says, well, there's no mandate for any abortionist to report to the state. So they have an estimate of about 214,000 abortions a year in California, all stem from this, where there were just a handful of abortions. In fact, I think the first year, there were 519 legal abortions as a result of that act. And so they thought, well, this will just be a few. Yeah, see, this is what happens with evil. It always starts off as seemingly innocuous, and then like a cancer, it grows. And so we're above 214,000 a year in California. And then rape, it's so interesting because you hear, social justice warriors and today's faux feminists talking about, every rape is a legitimate rape. A few years ago, there was a congressman who talked about, used the words, legitimate rape, and they flew off and saying every rape is a legitimate rape. Actually, no, every rape is not a legitimate rape. There are many false accusations. And the most notable rape was not actually a rape, wasn't legitimate. We know which one that was. That was the one that served as the catalyst for Roe v. Wade. Norma McCorvey claimed to have been raped. And that's what propelled that court case to the state court and then, of course, to the Supreme Court. She then recanted later in a New York Times article that she had never been raped. Not every rape is legitimate rape. But when they are, we have to figure out life-affirming ways to love the victim, to make sure that the rapist gets punished, and that that child who is completely innocent and the mother who is completely innocent aren't harmed in the process. And that's why I love talking about beautiful possibility. All of us have it. Some of us don't realize that we have it. Some of us are still trying to figure out what that is, but we all have it. God has, in Psalm 139, it says, you wove me together, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Not like, I was kind of made average. No, fearfully and wonderfully made. And we don't realize that beautiful possibility. We don't know what form that takes. Because some people will say, well, how is someone who's so severely disabled ever going to, impact somebody in a positive way? Well, I think Gianna Jessen says it the best. She said this in the congressional hearing. Those of us, and she's an abortion survivor. She survived a saline abortion and now deals with CP, cerebral palsy. Those of us who are the weakest make the rest of us better human beings. That's the truth. I know this. We have possibility that is, many of us don't even realize the impact. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because I think sometimes if we actually understood how we impacted other people's lives, it would then be about us. A little egocentric. But I think God gives us little glimpses now and then to let us understand how our presence impacts others, and in a beautiful way.
You never know Every human life, so irreplaceable. I can't imagine life without you, it's just unthinkable. There's no one like you, no one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion. There's no one like you, no one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion. No one like you, no one like you, no one.
This right here, possibility quotient. We've had our IQ measured in our lives at some point. Most of us. Does anybody in this room remember having your IQ measured? Right here. You what? You took an IQ test? Well, that's okay, because they're not accurate anyway. It doesn't matter. They lie. They're not accurate. I mean, we're always trying to assess. I mean, part of that is just to say, well, this particular human being has this capability. But you know what? They try to measure our IQ, but you know what they can't measure? Our possibility. We can't measure that at all. We don't even know what we're capable of. I mean, come on. How many of you in this room have ever done, well, let's just say, how many of you ever shocked yourself? Like, wow, I didn't even know I could do that. 5. Depressing. 5 people? Let me ask it again. How many of you have ever had that experience where you're like, I didn't even know I could do that? Come on. All right. Well, it's a good thing because at 2:15 there is a workshop on self-esteem and for those who need to love themselves more. Come on, people. But see, this in particular, you know, I found out that I was conceived and raped at the age of 13. Apparently, my mom had thought that she'd explained it when I was younger. Because how many, teenage years are already insane enough. They're already tumultuous enough. Oh, let me just rewrite your whole understanding of life and how you came to be. That happened at 13. People will say, there are sometimes, and journalists will ask, well, what did that do to you? Because I was loved like crazy, I didn't fall apart. Because I knew that I was loved. I knew that I had purpose. I didn't fall apart. But I think about the possibility that God has put in me, that God has put in you. It's ridiculous. We often, discount this when we say, well, people shouldn't, especially pro-abortion folks, they're always like, well, no one should ever grow up in adversity. No one should ever grow up in poverty because nothing good ever comes out of poverty, right? Greatness has arisen from poverty. But who are we to say that no one should face adversity? I mean, who wants an adversity-free world? I'm not even sure. When there is adversity, it forces people to rise to the occasion. It forces us to step outside of ourselves. Think of others. We always have this acronym with our kids, JOY, Jesus, others, you. It is so, adversity enables us to be who God has called us to be. I'm just going to give you some examples. Some of you may have seen these before, but this little guy grew up in poverty, had a single mom, and yay to single moms, although women were never meant to be mother and father, but this woman fought hard for her kiddos. She forced him to read. Oh, who said it? Yes. He only became a neurosurgeon. I wish he could have done better. If only he had worked a little harder. Dr. Ben Carson, this little girl was adopted. She sang like crazy, kind of like my little girl, Aaliyah, my youngest. She's 8 years old. She sings all the time around the house. This little girl's parents probably couldn't have imagined that singing around the house would end up meaning singing in front of millions of people. Anybody? No, but that's a good guess. Faith Hill, country music superstar. I know, she's probably an obscure artist. You've never heard of her before. This young lady was stronger than her circumstances. She was conceived and raped, also adopted, became a film star, TV star, recording artist, and she just happened to be one of the coolest voices of a villain ever in The Emperor's New Groove. My kids love that. That's actually one of my favorite movies. Yzma. And Christmas wouldn't be the same. Come on. You all know the song. Actually, what I find is people know the first 2 words of the song. So let's sing the 2 words together. Here we go. Everybody now.
Santa baby, just slip a sable
See, you didn't even know
under the tree.
Would Christmas be the same? Come on. Conceived in rape and just impacting the world. Another little guy who was also adopted. It's amazing. As a designer, I have been so blessed to be able to use their technology for years and years. I don't agree with their politics, but I love their devices. You know, my iPhone, my iPad, MacBook Pro. I wrote an article about this guy when he passed away. Steve Jobs changed the world. Adoption changed his. Remember I said earlier that sometimes adoption changes the world? Literally. And I know as a father of 4, 2 of my kids are adopted, and they've changed my world. I mean, ridiculous. I love them like crazy. And here's the awesome thing. And I am the king of Photoshop. I will Photoshop anything. So if you're wondering, like, you don't look anything like that. Yes, it's Photoshop, people. But I did not Photoshop this. So the picture on the left, God was like, hold on. Yes, there will be something really important in that hand. I'm just saying. And one last example. One of the reasons why I'm a factivist, I'm a citizen journalist, why I believe the truth needs to be spoken, of course, spoken in love, but also spoken without fear. This individual, Frederick Douglass, childhood hero, I'll talk about him all the time, and my hair will look like that at one point. I'm just saying, Frederick Douglass, who was a former slave, he was a abolitionist, he was a women's rights activist. He was probably the greatest orator of his day. He was an incredible writer, journalist. In fact, he had to start his own newspaper called the North Star back in 1847 because, surprise, mainstream media wouldn't tell the truth about slavery. So he started his own paper. He said, I see before me a life of toil and trials. I will not be silent. The truth must be told. And so here we have someone who was all these things, became all these things. He was a friend of another president that was also probably not well known, Abraham Lincoln. Anybody hear of him? He helped to reshape President Lincoln's conscience on the issue of slavery. President Lincoln called Frederick Douglass, my friend. Frederick Douglass was conceived in rape. Amazing. This is my mom. This is day one with Andrea Bomberger. This is the first moment that she was able to hold me. I was 6 weeks old. That cute little bundle of I was going to say joy, but it took about 25 years for that to happen. I was a handful. I'm just saying. Anybody here a handful for their parents at all? And for you parents who have the strong-willed child, let me just say, hold on, yeah. It is going to be okay. Because although it might take 25, 30 years, that strong-willed nature, that stubbornness, it could turn into something really good. So I'm just saying, hold on. Courage. I'm here because of the courage of my birth mom. Oh, you know what about this picture? My mom had me write this verse from Jeremiah 29:11, giving us a future and a hope. Had me do this in this beautiful lettering, and she wouldn't tell me what it was for. And so then on Christmas, this is a few years ago, actually it's more than a few years ago, it's 10 years ago, she gave me this framed picture and this big frame, and there's an article clothing. You see the bib outfit, whatever that I'm in, little jumper outfit. That's the jumper outfit behind. It doesn't match the color of the picture because the picture color changed. And there's a gold ring on my finger. I was with the foster family for 6 weeks, and that was the gold ring that they had put on my finger. She couldn't fit the passy in the picture frame because apparently the passy is like that big. And at the bottom of that frame were the words from Jeremiah 29:11, my favorite Christmas gift ever. Amazing. But here's the thing. It was the courage of my birth mom who defied what the world was telling her. I just believe that someone had to have spoken life because she could have had an abortion, even at that time. In fact, she was in the military, and it was that 1 year that they allowed abortion in case of rape and incest. And so she could have gone to New York. They legalized abortion in 1970, and she had options, and many states had therapeutic abortion sort of laws that enabled people to, therapeutically take care of a horrific situation. Of course, we all know that it's not therapeutic. This is my mom. She never could have known what the future held. My dad never could have known. And I talked about how my mom experienced such brokenness at the age of 5 because her alcoholic father, who was abusive to her mom, was not a good man, but she still tried to love him all her adult life. And so she still wanted to lead him to the Lord. And she said she would, when they were talking about adopting this cute little mocha-colored child right there, she thought, well, maybe he will want something to do with this. Maybe she had no idea, with all the flaws that he had, that he was also racist. So when she told him they were adopting this black child, he said, if you bring, and I'm always keep it rated G, but just imagine harsher words. If you bring this black child into your home, you're going to ruin your family. And so it's amazing because not only did adoption unleash purpose in my life, but in everybody's life, self-sacrifice unleashes purpose, because he threatened that if she adopted me, that he would disown her. And that's exactly what he did. So she lost a father in order to gain a son. And so I will say that she chose well. So there isn't a whole lot that you remember from today. And if you don't remember, there are great fact sheets and things out there that will remind you of some of the numbers that I've given you. But some of the best things in life are unplanned. Say it with me. Some of the best. One more time, people. Amen. Let me give you an example of why this is so beautiful. By the way, this is my little girl, Haley Radiance. She is the reason for the name of our organization. This is the day that I was able to adopt her and my youngest son. On the same day, there was a lot of ugly crying in that courthouse. That was just amazing. That's Haley Radiance Marie Bomberger, and this is the reason why when I think of the singular decision of my mom, despite the horror of being raped, that she couldn't have seen this in the future. She couldn't have seen my little boy Justice. She couldn't have seen my beautiful daughter, Haley Radiance, my beautiful wife, Bethany, who is awesome. I don't know if anybody in here knows Bethany. I know Jules and Catherine do. She's pretty awesome. And then my 2 middle kids who are competing for middle child status, Makai and Aaliyah. And I'm reminded of the power and the courage of my birth mom's decision. When I made that spot that you saw earlier that said life is purpose and listed the things that I've been able to become because of her decision, I was creating that, and my little Aaliyah, who's only 8 years old, comes into my office and she said, oh, Dad, she sings all the time, but she won't sing in front of other people. So I had the microphone set up and everything, and she said, can I sing? Oh, sure. She goes, well, what should I sing? I said, well, just sing whatever comes to mind, okay? Whatever comes to mind. And this little girl, I didn't help her with the parts. She sang all the parts. I just hit record. And just the words that she sang to me reminded me of what we need to be. No matter the circumstance, we need to be light and love to others. But this is my little girl, and it's just a reminder that I'm here, which is a miracle. She's here only because of that singular decision made so many years ago. So this is my little girl just reminding me of why we all do what we do. We have impact for generations.
This little light, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light, I'm gonna let it shine. Light, light. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light
Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Thank you.